Did anybody ever call you Drew?
No, I'm not a fan of Drew. That's in school.
Me either.
I went by AJ.
Very few people have ever called me Andrew.
What do you go by?
Drew.
Like forever?
I've always been Drew because my real name is Earl. You're listening to Cultivate, a podcast about the people and technology that are blazing a trail in the cannabis industry. Hey, welcome to another episode of Cultivate, brought to you by Boveda. We are live.
Live, yes.
We are live at 164th in Cleveland in Redmond, Washington at Origins Cannabis. I had it. I didn't forget where we were. Oh, this is exciting for us. It's exciting for us to be in your building and to see your operation and to get a load of your brand and to feel the vibe of being here. It's awesome. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for coming down. Really appreciate it.
Right on.
This is Andrew, by the way. Scott, Drew.
Thank you.
Andrew, do you want to introduce yourself to everyone?
Yeah, my name's Andrew. I'm down here at Origins Cannabis. Been in medical, transitioned over from medical to recreational. So it's been a great ride. Love my job every day.
So this is a different feel than a lot of dispensaries or retail operations that we've been in. It's a really well-considered brand. You've put a lot of time into building the brand. Can you talk a little bit about the story behind Origins and why it is the way it is and what's so special about it?
Yeah, the brand itself means a lot. You know, there's a lot of love that went into the brand. It's really about changing the perspective of cannabis. You know, that's what the brand stands for. When you wear that Origin shirt and you're walking down the street and you see somebody else in an Origin shirt, it's that secret society of saying, oh, what's up, how you doing, and knowing who they are. So for us, it was all about how do we get the customer into the right product from the very beginning. So we worked with Confidence Analytics to develop a system called the cannabinoid ratio system, which compares the ratios to THC. Therefore, a customer can get the same experience every single time they come into our store. And then it's categorized into lifestyles. So it makes shopping really easy if you're an expert or if you're a newbie and you want to try it out.
So I felt this way when I walked in, that this is very unique because no matter if you're a novice or if you're somebody that has some knowledge of what cannabis is about, maybe a little bit of experience, or if you're an expert, there's a entrance ramp for anybody walking into this environment. The way you're greeted at the door, the way you're treated, the way they walk you through the process, the way do you call them bud tenders here?
Cannabis guides.
Cannabis guides.
Yeah, the reason
Awesome.
for that is they get a lot of training, a lot of training and putting people in the right products. So we look at it as they're guiding you to the experience that you're looking for when you enter the store.
So this is a great place for a person to come that's curious about cannabis, that wants to understand what the effects of different strains are, different approaches to how you're going to ingest cannabis, whether you're going to smoke it or vape it or topical or edible or you name it. So there's a entry level for every appetite and for every level of expertise.
Absolutely.
Is that fair?
And a lot of dispensaries are very overwhelming. So you walk into it and you feel nervous and it's like, what is going on? Where am I? You're kind of lost. So when someone walks in here, it's very warm and welcoming, and it's, like you said, it's easy to find what you want, and the people here are great. So it's a fun place for sure.
Remind us of what the website address is.
OriginsCannabis.com.
So I went on the website, and you have a tool on the website where you can actually move a dimmer switch, or you push a button and it causes you to go across a spectrum of different categories of cannabis. Can you talk about the different categories and how people plug into those categories?
Yeah, absolutely. So the categories are developed for an experience. So we have categories: self-discovery. It's going to be an intense high, like more of a meditative high. And then we have our adventurous, which is going to be a ratio that's going to get you stimulated. Like, because not everybody consumes cannabis at the same level. Some people smoke it before they go on a hike. Some people smoke it to go to bed. So they would use our after hours. We have our social, which is just a really social, giggly, uplifting, stimulating cannabis. And so those lifestyles allow you to be able to come in and pick the right kind.
That's awesome. So one of the questions I had when you conceived of this space, when you came up with this brand idea, what is it about the Pacific Northwest that you guys are really owning in this space that feels so like home? I mean, there's a vibe here that I picked up on walking in. Can you talk a little bit to how you guys designed that?
Yeah, so I mean, the vibe really was about the Pacific Northwest. We spend a lot of time, out in the Pacific Northwest enjoying nature, and we wanted to bring that vibe right into the store. So you walked in and you felt like you were in Seattle. You felt like you were part of what we're trying to grow.
That's awesome. Can you explain, I want to hear this from you, the transition from medical to recreational and kind of went into all of that?
Yeah, that was a ride. We went from police officers knocking on the door saying they're going to search our premises. We started in a closet, and then we went from a closet to a house, and then we went from a house to 2 houses, and then we went to our first dispensary, which is medical, and we opened the doors to the public. And that transition was amazing. We were able to see individuals come in and use cannabis for medical reasons. And when you see something like that transformation happen in real life, there's no going back. You're sold to the industry and you really believe in what you're doing. And that's something you can't get anywhere else.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Can you talk about pesticides and the approach that the company has had to pesticides and what people can count on when they buy their cannabis products from Origins?
Yeah, absolutely. So for us, the product is one of the most important things. It's equally as important as the experience. And pesticides play a huge part in cannabis. Cannabis has never been clinically proven to cause cancer or anything else. And the fear is that one day it will because of how we're allowed to use pesticides in the state. For us, we make sure that there's only neem oil, waters. There's a couple of other organic pesticides, but we go through and we do independent tests every quarter on certain products. Origins certified product is actually tested for that lot to ensure that you're not getting pesticides.
So you bring up the idea of Origins certified, and I know when I went on the website, there's a lot of focus on the Origins certified, the naming and what that really means to the customer. Can you talk about what that means? What is the standard that you've created with Origins certified?
Yeah, so the certification that we went through is really because there's not one out there. So for us, it was about being transparent. We wanted a customer to be able to come in and know exactly what they were getting and how they were getting it. So we test it for pesticides. We do a full terpene profile. And again, that's for the novice or that's for somebody that's learning. We want you to be able to understand it. So you get your terpenes, your cannabinoid ratio, and a pesticide test when you purchase that product.
Awesome. And building off that, what else separates you from other dispensaries?
The ratio system is definitely important. I mean, that allows you to come in and get the same experience. Right now in the marketplace, this is an immature marketplace, right? So if we're all growing Blue Dream and we have different phenotypes, we smoke it, it's going to give you a different experience. And unfortunately, there's no DNA testing on these plants. So you can actually grow a Blue Dream, and if it's not selling, you can change the name to Gorilla Glue and put it on the marketplace, right? So you're getting a very inconsistent experience from a customer side. Yep. So for us, it's that transparency. That ratio allows you to identify that exact experience when you come in. So it's irrelevant if it was Blue Dream, you can find something else that's equally as good.
Awesome.
Very cool.
Awesome. We can't thank you enough for allowing us to come here and to enjoy your space and to do our podcast from your space. The welcome that we've received has been warm and really impressed with your operation. Thank you so much. I know you want to get Jon into the flow too, so.
Yeah, absolutely. Jon
I have one more question. Do you have any big plans for 2018? Anything you guys are looking forward to this upcoming year?
We're really looking forward to growing the brand and help set the standards in the marketplace. We're going to play a little bit more of an active role throughout the industry to try to develop systems that are going to be a little bit more impactful than what we have seen through the marketplace right now.
Awesome. Looking forward to it.
Awesome.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thanks. And I'm going to bring Jon in. He does all the sourcing for our store.
Very cool.
So when he referred to it, he talked about the curating. He was the curator for the different products in the store. So this will be interesting to get into, because did you wander around out in the show
there's
floor?
a ton of different stuff, and it's mind blowing. How do you pick and choose and go through all that? So be fun to hear from Jon.
And here's Jon.
Jon, can you introduce yourself and explain to everyone what you do here at Origins?
Hi, my name is Jon Sherman. I do the product curation for Origins Cannabis. My job is beautiful. Full-time, I drive around to all of our grow partners and source the best cannabis in the state.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And you've got a brand that you've built. You've got clothing. You've got coffee. Can you talk a little bit about the different ways you reach people through the lifestyle that you've created in the brand?
Certainly. So first, as Andrew kind of touched on, it's creating something that's palatable for the new consumer, but then something that's also backed by science. So that was the approach that we're taking. And then we want to use the brand Origins to leverage, in other fields, coffee, and other ways of kind of propagating the message.
And it's all premium quality product orientation. Everything about the brand experience is quality. Everything's premium. I mean, that's the thing that's so appealing to us. Our brand is a premium brand. We're all about maximizing people's ability to enjoy their passions. That's the ethic behind our company. And it really feels like we're at home. This is like we're at home around our own brand, the same kind of wholesome, constructive, kind, respectful. When Andrew mentioned the love, I mean, you feel it when you walk in and you look at the way the products are displayed and the way people explain them to you and the way that people treat people around here. It's spectacular. So is that all part of the?
Yeah, we do see the premium aspect, but we want to be very approachable as well. We want to be somewhere where everybody feels welcome. We have standards in place. And we want it to truly kind of be that environment where you'd feel comfortable bringing your mother to.
Yeah, and that's really what I felt walking in here was, like I said to Andrew, you can feel really overwhelmed when you walk into certain dispensaries and people aren't very nice. And you don't get that here. I mean, it is very welcoming and warm, and it's just a fun place.
Totally. Yeah, I've been able to witness so many interesting things since I've been here. I mean, there's times I've been sitting back in the office and I look out and I see, a grandmother with her granddaughter holding hands up at the front counter. I mean, yeah, who would have ever thought that day would have come? I mean, it's a pretty magical thing. I mean, especially probably for the granddaughter to take grandma to get some arthritis cream or some CBD medication for whatever that ailment may be.
So back to the products, how do you pick certain products to put into your dispensary? What's the process for vetting out certain brands and products? Do you have a team here that all tries it? Is it just you, or just kind of explain that whole process?
Sure. So what we do is, I mean, first off, it's going to the grows. It's building relationships. I think that is so key to know your farmer, know what they're doing, understand them, go in there and appreciate the people that are trimming the bud to the people that are growing the bud, because that all just creates a better product for Origins, I feel. Mm-hmm. So keeping that full circle thing intact is incredibly important. It's so easy. I mean, there's a little bit of an imbalance of product here in the marketplace where there's a ton of producers and processors and not a lot of retailers. I mean, the number of retailers is steadily growing, but there's still a great imbalance of product, supply and demand. And so with that comes people knocking on your door, constantly trying to get product in there. And so what do you do and how do you react to that? I spend 3 days a week just cruising around to different grows, going in, checking out their practices, reading into things, even to the point where we will assess a grow room with how many lights are in there, how many AC splits, so we know how many tons of AC they're running in there, so we can really start to project quality over seasons. There's a lot of underfunded gardens out there that are in places that get extremely hot in the summertime.
Yep.
And we want to make sure that they have adequate equipment to be able to control quality during those seasons.
So of all the products that you can choose from, what percentage of them actually qualify to be on the shelf at Origins in Washington? What of all the ideas that you see, the salespeople that drop in, the phone calls that you get, what percentage of those end up on your shelf?
I think what's honestly a little, to me, is a little more important is the people that we do pick. It's a very small percentage of even the flower that they grow that we curate from. They might grow 50 pounds of a particular strain, and we want to go there and select 5 pounds that were extra special. We know that the quality is going to differ from where it's out on the plant. We know, being able to put our nose in the bags and actually smell the product and taste the product and not just look at numbers.
That's fantastic. So you're doing a shopping job for the consumer, going in with an eye for quality, an eye for understanding what really makes great cannabis. And you're picking that out and doing the hard part for the consumer. They come here, they get to see the best of the best, the premium quality strains from each of these different farms that you've taken the time to curate. That's just fantastic.
Yeah, there's nothing hard about it. It's just
Do you love your job?
I love it. And I came from, previously I came from the wine industry. I worked at a few different wineries here in Woodinville, Washington. And I spent a lot of time going up to vineyards and, working a similar situation where you go down rows of vines and, you have to take those grapes back and make phenomenal wine out of it. And so I'm kind of reliving what I went to school for. And
yeah, I can see there's a lot of similarities there between
Totally.
the wine industry and the cannabis industry. So it's cool and it's fun. And I think as it progresses, it will turn more into the wine industry, and you'll have these really high-end brands that are maybe even doing long-term storage or different things. And it really, you get the what do we call it? Cannasseurs?
Cannasseurs, yep.
Yep. And it's fun to see that. So
yeah, so kind of going, I guess, back into some of the procedures as far as, vetting gardens prior to bringing them in. That is certainly one thing that we do. We have all of our gardens sign an affidavit that's just kind of stating that they do. They follow all the practices by the state of Washington.
Yep.
And then the certification is far more rigorous. That talks about, growth hormones and it kind of mirrors the Oregon tilth standard.
very cool.
It is cool. So it's a level of quality and a level of brand that people just aren't used to in this business. What kind of feedback are you getting from your customers in the store? Are you hearing about it firsthand? Are they coming back again and again to frequent your establishment? Do you have a loyalty program that you promote in the Origins brand?
Yeah, yep. We do a loyalty program based on your visits. And as Andrew touched on earlier, what is, that transparency leads to loyalty. And I think that there's a lot of low-hanging fruit currently in this market, which will come around and bite people in the butt. And so we certainly don't. We want to get in front of that, be transparent from day one.
Yeah, doing the right thing and things will always fall into place. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
So for those of you who are wondering where we are, we're in Redmond, Washington. We're at 164th and Cleveland at Origins Cannabis. And we're really grateful to have the opportunity to come here and hang out with you, Jon. Have the conversation about how you built the brand, how you curate the product for the store. Phenomenal job, and it's just a great vibe. It feels like home for us.
Yeah, and we appreciate what Boveda is doing for this industry, and we need more companies like yourselves to come in and really start to create that craft in this market. So thanks for what you guys do and continue to do.
Yeah, no, we love working with you guys. It's been nothing but a pleasure. So
yeah, and what I think too, the Don't Buy Dry, we ran a campaign, just to touch on real briefly. We ran a campaign called Friends Don't Let Friends Smoke Bad Cannabis. And what we were able to do is we were able to take products that people bought in the marketplace that they didn't like, whether they bought it at Origins or they bought it at another store. They could bring their empty package back to an Origins, an unlicensed premises, to return their empty containers. Mm-hmm. And there we would help us understand what it was that they didn't like. And so they'd fill out a quick little iPad survey, and we were blown away by what the results were. It was because their product was too dry. And so when we circled back through and we started to look at some of the testing standards, what we realized is that with a lot of the microbial testing in the state, people would drop their moisture levels significantly so that they would pass tests. I mean, there was even cases of hearing people microwaving things before they take them to a lab.
wow.
So that moisture content was completely off, what people weren't used to. And, from that's where we really started to kind of, learn and research Boveda. And we were like, this is a solution to a problem that we have because of, the way they've got testing set up. So, but customers don't want to buy dry. And so we've definitely realized that. And I mean, there's just absolutely huge potential for you guys in this space.
So the whole conversation last year was about seed to sale. And what's happened this year, because of the competition and because of the way the business of cannabis is maturing, is it's become from seed to satisfaction. Every brand is starting to care about the end user. It's not just about what happened to get it sold off of your dock and into the marketplace. It ends up being about the individual at the other end of the system that is taking your product off the shelf, buying it, having an experience, and deciding whether or not they're going to be loyal to that brand. So the extra care and concern that you guys are putting in, it's obvious in everything that you do around here, that you care deeply about the people that you're impacting with the cannabis products that you sell. with all the clothing and the merchandise that you sell, with the coffee that you sell. I mean, it's all a part of a bigger picture about caring about people, and you can feel it.
Yeah, you really can.
Lance Lambert, ladies and gentlemen. Fantastic. It's our first remote. We're at Origins Cannabis in Redmond, Washington. The reason we're here is because Lance knows just about everybody in the cannabis business and has joined Boveda as the head of our cannabis section. Welcome to Cultivate, Lance.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
DJ Romance.
You went there. So what is happening? So one thing that I thought I'd offer up is just a little bit of an industry update on what's going on. Something always keep the team abreast to, and wanted to share with our listeners as well. A lot of things going on though, domestic and international. So kind of breaking right into it to share with you guys some big news coming out of the South. You know, that's definitely a part of the country. It's been a little behind the curve, not just with respect to the adult use, but also to a certain extent the medicinal side of the industry. So actually I have some legislation getting put in place in Tennessee and Georgia, trying to move forward medical, which is a big win. There's actually quite a bit of growing that goes on in the Southeast that people don't know about. So it's kind of an interesting thing to hear. Our friends to the north as well, Canada, which you know very much about that market.
Yep.
One thing that, again, we've been so busy with the industry here in the States that Canada has been going after it big time. And Trudeau, who came into office just a few years back, that was a big message that he had, just like the new governor of Jersey, that he was really coming in with marijuana, with the fact that he wanted to legalize cannabis at a whole other level. And so a lot of stuff coming out of deals that some of the larger LPs up there, like Tilray and Aurora, they're partnering with not just other companies, but they're partnering with other countries. So partnering with the likes of Italy, with Greece, conversations in Australia, conversations in South America,
Germany,
around supply, Germany, very
Israel.
much so in Germany. Israel's another one. So the fact that we're a little behind the curve in that respect, but it's great to hear again that the expansion is moving to an international space that much faster.
For the uninformed viewer that doesn't realize, Canada is actually free to pursue this industry with some federal support.
Yes.
Which we don't enjoy in the United States because our federal government still lists this plant as a Schedule I narcotic.
Yeah, something I never understood, a fast fact, being a criminal justice major in college and studying all schedules of drugs and narcotics, that never made sense to me back then. And people ask, you know, did you really question that? And no, I didn't, because my two teachers in that major were an ex-sheriff, LA sheriff of 18 years, and an ex-LAPD lieutenant of 17 years. So the fact that this is what they knew, you really didn't question it. But it never quite fit compared to opioids and PCP and Molly, MDMA, things like that.
If and when the day comes that the United States changes the code so that we're actually supporting these entrepreneurs and in building their businesses and serving the world, in the meantime, Canada gets to take advantage of that.
Yes,
without our interference.
Very much so. And that's the thing, that it's a big deal because you're talking about several provinces that are all on the same page. So people don't understand, while Uruguay was the first country technically to legalize as a full country cannabis, for Canada to come on board from an adult use standpoint from essentially New Brunswick or Nova Scotia all the way to Vancouver, BC, is a huge undertaking. Because, yeah, while it may be only 10 provinces, that's still about 36.3 million people populace that had to be swayed vote to majority. Now, don't get me wrong, we're at between who you talk to, mainstream or industry-specific media outlets, you know, the acceptance rates in the U.S. anywhere between 57 and 59%. So we already know that the vast majority have spoken, but we know that that doesn't always dictate what ends up as an outcome in politics for the U.S.
So Canada's recreational freedoms will go into full effect in
July 1st.
July 1st.
That's what we just heard about a month ago. They're a little, it's kind of up in the air. They're still going for July 1st, but there are a few things that Parliament brought up, questioning around some of the due process as it gets to the counter, so to speak. But they're still tentatively shooting for mid-year. So, yeah, big deal.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So we're broadcasting the Cultivate podcast, brought to you by Boveda. We're broadcasting today, or podcasting today, or whatever we call it now. We used to say broadcast, but we're podcasting from the Origins Cannabis location on 164th and Cleveland in Redmond, Washington.
Yep.
And we're really grateful to be here. We do want to do a few shout outs, some thanks. Angela and Kate and Andrew and Torian that greeted us so warmly and took such good care of us today. We want to thank you. We want to thank Andrew and Jon for taking the time to have us out here and spending the time behind the mic and talking about how you created this brand. We want to thank you for that. It's really a pleasure to be here. And the first of our On the Road podcasts with Lance.
Yes.
And in a great market. I just have to point that out. This is phenomenal. The Northwest. A lot of people don't realize, I just have to continue the fast facts, right? So being from the Colorado market where I cut my teeth, they've got a fair population out there. But technically, Washington was the largest by populace as far as adult use up until California came online. It's a kind of interesting fact that we're talking about over 7 million consumers in Washington alone. They've been doing their own thing up here, but they've been doing it phenomenal. And some of the things that are in play here are very similar going back to Canada, where essentially you have a non-vertical integration, assimilation, which in many ways makes sense. A little bit of church and state. So you have
Tell people what that means, vertical integration.
Yeah, there's a lot of buzzwords, especially about 4 or 5 years ago. You mentioned seed to sale was one that's really big. Like you say, you have a different expression.
Seed to satisfaction.
Seed to satisfaction. And I call it seed to social, because that's something that I like about this brand here. These guys don't just care about what happens when it hits the counter, but they care about what happens when it hits the consumer. And
Plus you also bought the website. That has nothing to do with it.
I'm a tech guy at heart. I'm a true believer. So, but having said that, so vertical integration is the expression we use where an entity essentially owns that product from the time they put it in the ground until it's harvested, dried, cured, packaged, all the way up to the sale, to the retail side.
So you'd own the grow and the processing
all
and the
inclusive.
Dispensary all in one
Exactly.
under one umbrella.
Yeah, which, from a quality standpoint, it really does make it that much easier to manage. But flip side, again, with the industry up here, and I think these guys have done an excellent job of it. I don't think AJ spoke too much about it, but they really command that quality even though they don't have full control. So they'll be working with their growers and making sure that it's as organic as possible and it's cured properly and that it's packaged properly and that it's presented properly. So that's something we really applaud them, because a lot of entities out here, they just go, okay, we get what we get, we put it on the shelf and sell it. So for them to really adapt and make the most of a situation that is essentially, again, dividing church and state, similar to what Canada is doing with LPs, licensed producers, LDs, licensed distributors, and then LRs, licensed retailers. It's really nice that these guys aren't just, okay, we'll take what we can get. Because you hear about that in other markets. There's stores in Portland where my friends are growers in South Oregon. They come with essentially 400 pounds in a huge duffel bag and go, do you want to buy this? And that's to the extent of the process. So yeah, some cool stuff going on up here in the Northwest for sure.
And it's time for
Hashtag Ask Boveda. We've got a question from Angela Carson on our Instagram. This is kind of funny because we actually have a new campaign starting. No, don't show it yet. Kind of around this question that Lance came up with. The question is, can I really use tortillas to help keep my cannabis fresh?
That's a great question.
Tortillas were used at one point. Actually, anything that anyone could get their hands on that had any moisture to it, be it orange peels, banana
bananas,
peels,
apples,
apple slices,
yeah,
maybe with a little cheese, delicious.
moist towels. Some people, I don't know who, use moist paper towels.
So the new campaign that Lance thought up, Lance Romance, the new head of the cannabis section for Boveda, is keep your what's it say?
Save your tortillas
And we'll leave
for
my
Taco
nickname
Tuesdays.
from
Right.
college out of it because it's been 2 decades. You guys are killing me.
So no,
You're looking right at it.
Here's okay. I'm behind it. So
It says Evos Stakos. Sorry, I'm reading it upside down.
So the bottom line is we don't give advice, okay? We do one thing and we do it really well, and we don't sit here and brag about how fabulous we are either. But the trip about Boveda is it's not about us, it's about you. Take our product, use it in your process, and come up with your own conclusions. Do your own case studies. Don't take the sales guy's word for it. Have your own experience and see how it affects the quality of the way your cannabis flower smells, smokes, feels, the whole 9 yards. Everybody that we come in contact with, we encourage them, try it in your own process.
Yeah.
Don't take our word for it. And it works out beautifully because people have their own experience. They become advocates for our product, and that's why things are going the way they're going.
That's how I got here as a personal story. I mean, you guys, I've known you
This is
from
a
the
great,
industry
this is a
for
great
some
story.
time.
This is
Yeah.
a great story.
And I actually happened to forget about an eighth in my trunk after doing a tour of a facility in
And for
Colorado.
those people that don't understand what an eighth is at home,
3.5 grams.
okay, so it's an eighth of an ounce.
Yes, eighth of an ounce. I'm sorry.
No, I'm just saying.
I didn't say dime bag. I'm not getting into nickels and dimes.
What's a
It's
dime
funny.
bag?
So that's a whole different tangent. We had guess how much cannabis is in a bag, and I told it is a bunch of Gen Y, which is fine. I relate with them. But I was like, oh, it looks like a QP, and they're like, what the hell's a QP? And I'm like, that's a quarter pound. That's what we used to call them when we were younger. I totally dated myself, but I digress. So I did. I had an eighth of cannabis. That'd be an eighth of an ounce that was sitting in the trunk of my vehicle for about 4 weeks, and I forgot about it. And I thought it was done. I mean, at that point, when you do have something that's dried out that far, typically,
And you're in LA
yeah.
or Colorado.
At this point, I was in Colorado.
So it's dry.
Yeah, it was already dry. We've discovered that. And it was excessively dry. I mean, you look at the wrong way, it turns into what we call keef, which is essentially when you just have crumble. It just turns into dust, essentially. And I'd run into you guys, I think it was at a Champs convention, and I had some samples, and I put one in there. And sure enough, 2 days later, it came back to life. But the thing that impressed me the most wasn't just your point. It wasn't just the feel and the look, but it was also even the smell. I mean, it literally brought it back to life. So I became very much an advocate of Boveda before becoming an employee at Boveda. But you're right, you have to try it on your own. I did a side-by-side test too with a few other options. I didn't go retro into lettuce and banana peels and such, but just from a not being a scientist perspective, I wouldn't want any cross-contamination from something else that's exuding terpenes.
That's a great point.
So that's one thing for everyone to know. It's not a trick word. Everything has terpenes. A cinnamon stick has terpenes. Pine has terpenes. I mean, everything has these elements, and it's what you smell and it's what you taste. And so if I'm putting a rotting banana peel that's going through what we call an oxidation process, and that's off-gassing into my cannabis, that's ruining something's quality. I mean, it'd essentially be putting like, I don't know, a 5-day-old piece of cheese in with some Chopin vodka. Why would you corrupt something that somebody spent so much time and effort to make
But
the
who
best
really
it
hasn't
possibly
done that before?
in this country? So anyway, so yeah, that's the thing. So that's why we came up with the campaign. I was flying into Santa Rosa for the Emerald Cup, and I grew up in the Bay Area, so I have many friends that are genetics or growers themselves. And one of them said, "What's that company you work at now?" And I said, "Oh, I work for Boveda." And he's like, "Well, we use Mexican Boveda." And I said, "Well, what's Mexican Boveda? I didn't know, like a knockoff or something." And he's like, "No, we use tortillas." And I'm like, it's the 21st century, right? I mean, neither of us are old enough to go to Woodstock. So to give you an idea of demographic. And he's like, yeah, I know. It's just what I've done. And I said, just because it's what you've done isn't necessarily meaning what you should do. Same thing. I use the analogy of, I could go wash my clothes down by the river, but somebody invented this thing called a washing machine. My God, it's awesome. I just throw clothes in it. It tells me when it's done with a little timer, poof. It's so much simpler. It's the same thing with finding technology around this industry. It's just an advantageous thing to do. So yeah, total tangent, but that's why we came up with that campaign, and every grower gets a huge kick out of it because they know where it's coming from.
It's a great, and people react to the shirts. We've run out of these shirts at shows all the time. Save your tortillas for Taco Tuesday.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for joining us, listening. This is Cultivate, presented by Boveda.
Scott, what would I do if I had a question that I wanted to have answered either live on the podcast or by a phone call or an email back from you personally?
I would hashtag Ask Boveda on any of our social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, or email us at info@bovedainc.com.
Thank you, Scott.
You're welcome.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Drew.
Thanks a lot, Scott, for thanking me. And Lance, thank you so much.
Thank you, Drew.
Thank you. And thank you, Origins.
For letting us be here. This
We
has been
appreciate
a
it.
blast.
All right, fantastic. Right on.